Welcome back to Broadcasting Seeds, the podcast where we dig deep into the strange, the unexplained, and the downright uncomfortable truths lurking in the shadows of our reality. I'm your host, Bennett Tanton, and if you've been here before, you know we don't shy away from the weird or the weighty. Today, we're stepping into the darkness, and I mean literal darkness. We're talking about a concept that's been whispered in conspiracy circles, shouted from pulpits, and hinted at in declassified documents: the Black Awakening. This is the idea of a worldwide event where sleeper agents, ordinary people like you and me, are activated to unleash chaos on an apocalyptic scale. Sounds wild, right? Well, stick around, because it's wilder than you think. Here's the thing. The Black Awakening isn't just some Hollywood fever dream or a late-night Reddit rabbit hole. This idea pulls threads from history, psychology, spirituality, and yes, even government experiments. And when you start weaving those threads together, the tapestry gets unsettling real. We're talking mass control, mind-altering programming, and the idea that someone or something is planning to hit the switch. Now, before you roll your eyes and write this off as a conspiracy nuts bedtime story, let me assure you, we're not here to sensationalize. We're here to examine, to question, to ask, is this possible? Who's behind it? And most importantly, what does it mean for us as individuals and as a society? So buckle up. By the end of this episode, you might be rethinking what you know about free will, the systems we trust, and the battle between good and evil. But hey, no pressure. It's just your soul and society on the line, right? Let's crack this open, seed by seed. And remember, if you start feeling like you're part of a sleeper cell, don't say I didn't warn you. Start at the beginning, or at least as close to the beginning as we can get when we're talking about something like the Black Awakening. This isn't your run-of-the-mill conspiracy theory born out of internet forums. No, it has deeper roots, tangled up in history, shadowy government programs, and even whispers of spiritual warfare. The term Black Awakening itself first popped up in conspiracy circles tied to concepts of mind control and psychological warfare. Its proponents suggest that governments and shadow organizations, what some call the deep state, have spent decades, maybe even centuries, working on ways to control the human mind. Not just influence it, control it. Now, before you dismiss that as a tinfoil hat moment, let's take a step back. These claims didn't come out of nowhere. They're built on documented programs, real programs that had chilling goals. Let's talk about MKUltra, the CIA's infamous mind control project. If you're not familiar, here's the SparkNotes version. Back in the 1950s and 60s, the CIA decided it might be fun or necessary to experiment on unwitting citizens to see if they could manipulate thoughts and behaviors. They used LSD, sensory deprivation, hypnosis, you name it. And if you think this was a small operation, think again. This wasn't a single laboratory in a basement somewhere. This was a massive, multi-pronged effort involving universities, hospitals, and even prisons. They wanted to know, could they break a mind and rebuild it? Could they create what's now known as a Manchurian candidate, a programmed assassin who doesn't even know they're an assassin? Sounds dystopian, right? Well, here's the kicker. They succeeded, to an extent. There's documented proof of memory implantation, personality fragmentation, and individuals carrying out tasks they were programmed to do without conscious awareness. Let that sink in. And this isn't just ancient history. While MK Ultra was officially shut down in the 70s, does anyone really believe the government stopped playing with this kind of fire? If anything, the tech and techniques have only gotten more advanced. That's where the idea of the Black Awakening comes in. The theory is this: there's a sleeper army out there. Normal people walking around living their lives with no idea they've been programmed. Maybe it was through trauma, maybe through technology. Heck, maybe it's something as innocuous as that smartphone in your pocket. The idea is that one day something or someone will flip the switch, activating these people. And when that happens, chaos. Now, you might be thinking, Bennett, this sounds like a movie plot. And you'd be right, it does sound like a movie. But here's the thing about Hollywood. They're not exactly known for original ideas. Could it be that some of these storylines are rooted in real projects? You know, a little predictive programming to get the masses used to the idea? Think about it. If you watched a movie where sleeper agents are activated to wreak havoc, would you think twice about it if you saw it happening in real life? Or would you just assume it's part of the chaos of modern society? That's the insidious part of this whole theory. It's designed to make you doubt what's real and what's manufactured. But where did the concept of sleeper agents and mass chaos really take hold? To answer that, we've got to dig a little deeper into the spiritual and ideological roots of this theory, because the Black Awakening isn't just about technology and mind control. It's about the battle between light and darkness. Before we dive into the spiritual warfare aspect, let me just say this. If all of this feels like a lot to process, good, it should. The point of exploring these ideas isn't to scare you. It's to wake you up, to make you think critically about the systems we trust and the narratives we're fed. Now let's turn the page and look at the forces behind this awakening, both the seen and the unseen. All right, let's shift gears. We've talked about the practical side of the Black Awakening, the government, experiments, the psychology, the science. But now we're diving into something deeper, something that goes beyond the physical world. Because if you really want to understand this concept, you've got to look at the spiritual battle that some believe is at its core. You see, the Black Awakening isn't just about sleeper agents and chaos. It's about the ultimate clash between good and evil, light and darkness, God and the forces that oppose him. And yes, I know this is where some people might start tuning out, thinking, oh great, here comes the religious stuff. But stick with me here. This isn't just about faith. It's about patterns, symbols, and a battle that's been raging long before any of us were born. Now, let's break this down. Every culture, every religion, every myth has its own version of the cosmic battle. In Christianity, it's the war between God and Satan. In Hinduism, it's the eternal struggle between dharma and adharma, order and chaos. Even in modern pop culture, we see echoes of this. Jedi versus Sith, superheroes versus villains. Why do these stories resonate so deeply with us? Maybe it's because they're not just stories. Proponents of the Black Awakening theory argue that the event is a key part of the spiritual war. They believe that the chaos unleashed by sleeper agents is meant to destabilize society and prepare the way for something or someone. In Christian terms, this is often linked to the arrival of the Antichrist and a one-world government. And here's where it gets even darker. There's a belief that the programming used to create sleeper agents isn't just psychological, it's spiritual. Some suggest that through trauma-based mind control, individuals are spiritually fractured, creating openings for demonic influence. Think possession, but on a spectrum. Now, I know what you're thinking. Demonic influence? Really? But let's look at the evidence. Throughout history, people have reported encounters with malevolent forces. Call them demons, jinn, or whatever label your culture uses. These entities are often described as manipulative, feeding on fear and chaos. Sounds eerily similar to what the Black Awakening is supposed to create, doesn't it? And let's not forget the symbolism. People who believe in this theory point to the use of occult imagery in media, government, and even major corporations. Think of the all-seeing eye, the pyramid, and certain hand signs. Are these just coincidences, or are they signs of a deeper agenda? Here's one example: the United Nations base at Mount Hermon. This is a location steeped in biblical lore. It's said to be the place where the fallen angels, those who rebelled against God, descended to earth. Coincidence that there's now a UN base there? Maybe. Or maybe it's a symbol, a stake in the ground for this spiritual battle. And then there's the idea of predictive programming in media. Why do so many movies and TV shows glorify chaos and destruction? Why do we see themes of mind control, secret societies, and apocalypse so often? Some believe it's a way to desensitize us, to normalize these ideas so that when they happen, we're too numb to react. But here's the flip side, and this is important. If there is a spiritual battle going on, it means we're not powerless. In the Bible, we're told to put on the full armor of God to stand against the forces of darkness. And even if you're not religious, there's a lesson here. Knowledge is power. Awareness is armor. So what does all of this mean for us? It means that if the Black Awakening is real, it's not just a fight for control of society, it's a fight for our very souls. And the battlefield isn't just out there in the world, it's in here. Pauses briefly. In our hearts, in our minds. But if you're thinking this is all just spiritual doom and gloom, hang tight. In the next section, we're going to look at the technological side of this theory, the tools that might make such an event possible, and what's happening right now that should make us all sit up and take notice. Okay, let's talk tech. We've covered the historical and spiritual angles of the Black Awakening, but now we're diving into the mechanical gears of this whole theory. Because if something like this were to happen, an event where masses of people are activated simultaneously, it would require a serious technological backbone. And spoiler alert, that backbone already exists. Let's start with something most of us carry around 24/7. Smartphones. Yep, your trusty little pocket companion might just be the ultimate surveillance and manipulation tool. Think about it. Our phones track everything: where we go, who we talk to, what we buy, even how we sleep. Add in algorithms designed to predict and influence behavior, and you've got a recipe for subtle, ongoing manipulation. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Have you ever noticed how certain apps or platforms seem to know what you're thinking? Like you're talking about a vacation to Florida, and suddenly your feed is flooded with ads for Miami hotels. Harmless? Maybe. But what if the same tech could be used to plant ideas, or even commands? The concept of subliminal messaging isn't new, but with AI and big data, it's evolved into something much more precise and frankly creepy. Then there's 5G. Now let me preface this by saying, no, I'm not suggesting 5G is the devil in disguise, but many theorists believe it could play a role in the Black Awakening. Why? Because 5G isn't just faster internet, it's the infrastructure for a fully connected world. Smart cities, smart homes, smart everything. While that sounds convenient, it also creates a web of constant surveillance and potential control. Imagine a world where someone, or something, could hack into your devices, your car, even your pacemaker. That's not sci-fi anymore, it's reality. And if you think mind control sounds far-fetched, let's talk about Neuralink. Yep, Elon Musk's brainchild. The idea is to connect the human brain directly to computers, allowing for incredible advancements in medicine and communication. Sounds amazing, right? But here's the question no one seems to be asking. What happens when that tech is hacked, or worse, weaponized? Imagine an army of people with brain implants all activated with a single command. If that doesn't sound like the beginning of the Black Awakening, I don't know what does. But it's not just about direct control. The real danger is in the subtle stuff. Think about deepfake technology. We're at a point where it's nearly impossible to distinguish a real video or audio clip from a fabricated one. Imagine the chaos you could create by faking a leader's voice or face, issuing commands that incite panic or violence. And let's not forget social media platforms, which are already being used to manipulate public opinion. What if those platforms were weaponized on a global scale? Now let's talk about drones. Not the kind delivering your Amazon packages, the ones designed for psychological operations or psyops. The military has been experimenting with drones that emit sound frequencies capable of inducing fear or anxiety. Combine that with targeted propaganda, and you've got a tool that can destabilize entire populations. And yes, there's evidence these kinds of experiments are already happening. Then there's the infamous HAARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. Officially, it's a research program studying the ionosphere, but conspiracy theorists argue it's capable of weather manipulation and, you guessed it, mind control. Whether that's true or not, HAARP serves as a reminder that we've barely scratched the surface of what modern technology can do and how it can be misused. Here's where it all comes together. The theory goes that these technologies, AI, 5G, brain implants, psyops tools, are the building blocks of the Black Awakening. They're not being developed in isolation. They're part of a larger system designed to monitor, influence, and ultimately control us. And when the time comes to activate the sleeper agents, these tools will be the switches that flip them on. But here's the question. Who's holding the switch? Is it governments, corporations, something more sinister? We'll explore that in the next section as we dive into the potential architects of the Black Awakening and the motivations behind it. Spoiler, it's not as simple as pointing fingers at the usual suspects. All right, let's peel back another layer of this onion, because if there's one thing conspiracy theories love, it's asking who's really behind it all. When it comes to the Black Awakening, the answer isn't simple. It's not just a shadowy group of people smoking cigars in a dimly lit room, though that would make for a pretty cool movie scene. No, the alleged architects of chaos are a tangled web of governments, corporations, secret societies, and, brace yourself, spiritual forces. Let's start with the easy targets, governments. History is full of examples of governments experimenting on their own citizens. We've already touched on MK Ultra, but let's add a few more notches to that belt. Remember Operation Northwoods? This was a proposed U.S. military plan in the 1960s to stage fake terrorist attacks on American soil to justify going to war with Cuba. While it never came to fruition, the fact that it was even considered should give us pause. And then there's Cow Intel Pro, the FBI's covert operation to infiltrate and disrupt civil rights and anti-war movements. If governments are willing to manipulate their own people for political gain, why not take it a step further and prepare sleeper agents for a larger agenda? Now let's move on to corporations, because we can't ignore the role of big tech and big pharma. Think about how much influence companies like Google, Facebook, and Amazon have over our lives. These aren't just businesses. They're data-collecting juggernauts with the power to shape opinions, behaviors, and even elections. And what about pharmaceutical companies? With the rise of antidepressants, antipsychotics, and other mood-altering drugs, it's not hard to imagine a scenario where medication is used as a tool for control. And then there's DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. If you've never heard of DARPA, they're like the mad scientists of the U.S. military-industrial complex. They're the ones working on AI, robotics, and even brain-computer interfaces. While their official mission is to keep America at the cutting edge of defense technology, some believe they're also dabbling in the kind of experiments that could pave the way for the Black Awakening. But let's zoom out even further to the secret societies. Now, before you roll your eyes, hear me out. Groups like the Freemasons, the Bilderberg Group, and the Trilateral Commission are often accused of pulling the strings behind global events. While there's no concrete proof linking these groups to the Black Awakening, their secrecy and influence make them prime suspects in the eyes of conspiracy theorists. And we can't forget about the Illuminati, or at least the modern-day interpretation of it. Whether or not such a group exists, the concept of an elite cabal orchestrating global chaos is a cornerstone of this theory. And what would be their endgame? The establishment of a new world order, a one-world government where control is absolute and resistance is futile. Now, let's get into the truly bizarre. Many proponents of the Black Awakening believe the ultimate architects aren't even human. They point to the idea of demonic entities, fallen angels, or even extraterrestrial beings influencing events from behind the scenes. This ties back to the spiritual warfare aspect we discussed earlier. The theory goes that these entities use willing human participants, think politicians, CEOs, and scientists, as pawns in a much larger game. Here's an example. The idea that certain leaders or influencers make pacts with demonic forces in exchange for power. Sounds crazy, right? But history and mythology are full of stories about deals with the devil. From Faust to modern pop culture, the idea of trading one's soul for success has always been a cautionary tale. What if it's more than a metaphor? Then there's the alien angle. Some believe that extraterrestrials or interdimensional beings are the ones pulling the strings, whether they're malevolent or simply indifferent to human suffering. These beings are thought to use advanced technology to manipulate events on Earth. This theory gained traction with claims of government cover-ups, like Roswell, Area 51, and the recent UFO whistleblowers. If these entities exist, could they be orchestrating the Black Awakening as part of some grand experiment? Now, here's the million-dollar question. Are these groups working together, or is it chaos within chaos? Are governments, corporations, secret societies, and spiritual forces all part of the same agenda, or are they competing for control? The truth might be somewhere in between, a mix of coordinated efforts and opportunistic power grabs. But one thing is clear. If the Black Awakening is real, the architects aren't working in the open. They're operating in shadows, using deception, fear, and manipulation to achieve their goals. And while we might not be able to name names, we can learn to recognize the signs. In the next section, we'll focus on what this means for us, how we can protect ourselves, our families, and our communities from the potential fallout of an event like this. Because while the architects of chaos might be powerful, they're not invincible. Okay, folks, we've looked at the what, the why, and the who of the Black Awakening. Now it's time for the part that really matters. What can you do about it? Because whether this theory turns out to be a shadowy reality or just a paranoid thought experiment, one thing is certain: the world is complicated, chaotic, and not always what it seems. And in times like these, knowledge isn't just power, it's survival. Let's start with the basics. Awareness. The first step to protecting yourself is recognizing the signs of manipulation and control. Be skeptical of the narratives fed to you by the media, governments, and even your social circles. That doesn't mean walking around with a tinfoil hat, but it does mean questioning the motives behind what you see and hear. Ask yourself, who benefits from this story? What are they trying to make me feel, believe, or do? Next, let's talk about technology. Look, I'm not saying you need to chuck your smartphone into a lake and go live off the grid, though, if you're into that, more power to you. But you do need to take control of your digital footprint. Limit the data you share online, turn off location tracking, and think twice before clicking accept on those terms and conditions. And for the love of all that's holy, stop using password 123 for your accounts. Another key step is protecting your mental and emotional state. Remember, the tools of manipulation often target your fear, anger, and uncertainty. So take steps to guard your mind. Meditate, pray, journal, whatever helps you stay grounded. And be mindful of what you consume, both digitally and spiritually. If you're constantly plugged into fear-based content, you're making yourself an easy target for manipulation. Now, let's go deeper. Community. One of the goals of the Black Awakening, if it's real, is to isolate people and create division. Why? Because divided people are easier to control. So make it a priority to build strong relationships with your family, friends, and neighbors. Support one another, share information, and create a network of trust. The more connected you are to others, the harder it is for any external force to break you down. And here's where it gets practical: preparedness. I'm not saying you need to build a bunker in your backyard, unless you've already got one, in which case, nice job. But having a plan in place for emergencies is never a bad idea. Stock up on essentials like food, water, and medical supplies. Learn basic survival skills: how to filter water, start a fire, or perform first aid, not because you're expecting doomsday, but because self-reliance is a form of freedom. But here's the most important thing you can do: stay spiritually anchored. Whether you're religious or not, this battle, if it's real, isn't just physical or mental. It's spiritual, and that means you need to fortify your soul. For Christians, this might mean prayer, reading scripture, and putting on the full armor of God, mentioned in Ephesians. For others, it might mean seeking inner peace, aligning with your values, and standing firm in what you believe is right. Whatever it looks like for you, make it a priority. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. What if this is all just a theory? What if the Black Awakening never happens? Well, that's actually good news, isn't it? Because even if this scenario never unfolds, the steps we've talked about, awareness, preparedness, community, and spirituality, are still valuable. They'll help you live a more intentional, resilient, and fulfilling life, no matter what the future holds. But if it does happen, if one day you wake up and the world feels like it's been turned upside down, you'll be ready. You'll know how to see through the chaos, protect the people you love, and stand firm in the face of darkness. And that, my friends, is how we fight back. Well, folks, that's a wrap on today's exploration into the Black Awakening. We've explored the history, the spiritual warfare, the technology, the architects, and how to protect ourselves from what might be the most unsettling theory we've tackled yet. Whether you believe this is just another wild conspiracy, or you see pieces of the puzzle falling into place, the goal here wasn't to scare you, it was to prepare you. At the end of the day, the world is full of mysteries, manipulations, and outright madness. But here's the good news. We have the tools to navigate it. Question everything, stay grounded, and don't let fear control you. Because while chaos might be knocking on the door, we're not powerless. We're not alone. If today's episode made you think, made you question, or even made you a little uncomfortable, good. That's the whole point of broadcasting seeds. These aren't just seeds of thought, they're seeds of action, awareness, and maybe even a little hope. Before you go, do me a favor. If you enjoyed this episode, or if it made your brain hurt in a good way, hit that like button, share the podcast with a friend, and leave a review wherever you're listening. It helps us grow, reach more people, and keep planting those seeds. And hey, if you have thoughts, theories, or questions, drop me a message. I love hearing from you. I'll see you next time, right here on Broadcasting Seeds, where we tackle the strange, the cryptic, and the conspiratorial. Until then, stay sharp, stay grounded, and keep an eye on the shadows. You never know what's hiding there, or who might be waiting to wake up.
I got bad thoughts that make my mind scared, hold me hostage and they don't fight fair. Who gon' pray for me and wipe all my tears? Who gon' save me if you not right here? Move this darkness and make my sight clear. Take me your way cause I don't like here. Ghosts of my past, they feeling the night air. Wake me up, I'm trapped in my nightmares. Wake me up, I'm trapped in my nightmares. Drowning, I'm off the deep end. Apparitions of all my demons. All my thoughts are committing treason. All alone, who gon' hear me screaming? Manifestations of my fears. Regrets that stretched out for light years. Can almost touch the light, homie, it's right there. Body free but trapped in my nightmares. Wake me up, don't let me drown. All the lights are fading